My name is Paul, and I'm here to fight some dangerous and outrageous charity lies that have been circulating via the internet for the better part of the last decade. They are lies that I find not just reprehensible, but personally extremely offensive. I'm 71 years old, and I'm alive today only because I've received several blood transfusions. Each year in the United States, roughly 5 million people receive blood transfusions, and they, along with me, depend upon the existence of a safe and reliable blood supply for our survival. Yet these scurrilous charity lies, if widely believed, could easily threaten the nation's blood supply. If that were to happen, then the ensuing death toll could easily dwarf even a disaster like 9/11. This table is a typical example of the nefarious charity lies. I must have seen this table half a dozen times in the last year. It resurfaces again and again, frequently in altered form, but with exactly the same inaccurate data. It is often mistakenly shared by caring, well-meaning people who want to serve their community by ensuring that charitable donations actually benefit those people in need. Regrettably, there is a small cadre of unscrupulous people that periodically continue to send out these lies. These people depend on the trust and the basic humanitarianism of people to spread their despicable lies. Unfortunately, this table is riddled with lies. The lies start right at the top, where Snopes is cited as the source of the data. Actually, Snopes disputes this claim. As they put it, the data is mostly outdated and inaccurate. Personally, I think Snopes is being overly kind to the table's original creators. Right from the get-go, we see that the table lacks credibility. But the really critical distortion occurs in the table's last column, which purports to display the amount of each donated dollar that goes to the needy. This column implies that you're a sucker to donate to charities such as the American Red Cross, which manages the nation's blood supply. Well, the table is lying to you, as determined by Snopes and my own independent investigation of the American Red Cross. This shameless distortion of the facts means that every charity in the table, both good and sucker entries, get unfairly defamed by these lies. Investigating the last column further using Snopes and my investigation of the American Red Cross, one can see that while generally the good charities are respectable, none of the so-called sucker charities are as bad as indicated. I've listed true results in red next to the false results in the last column for you to compare. Let me repeat that. None. That's right, I said none of the sucker charities are as bad as indicated by this lying table. In fact, the so-called sucker charities often give you more bang for your charity donation than the good charities. A particularly egregious example of these lies is the table entry for the American Red Cross, which is the charity I personally investigated. The disparity between the lies in this table and the truth is so great that it makes one suspect that an attempt is being made to deliberately harm these so-called sucker charities. And herein is the danger posed by these lies. If these lies cause a possible reduction in donations to the so-called sucker charities, then people in genuine need may well find themselves without the necessary resources to survive. I can tell you from personal experience, when you need a blood transfusion, then you are definitely one of the needy. In case you're wondering how I know the data presented in the comparison is false, it is because I've taken the time to research the data. Over the years, many people have debunked these lies, and you can find numerous references to these facts on the internet. One of the best sources is Snopes. Here is the web page that discusses these lies. In addition, I was so disturbed by the American Red Cross data presented in the Internet table that I did my own analysis using the 2014 American Red Cross Audited Financial Report. Here's a web page where you can see the report for yourself. This audited financial report has been verified by the U.S. Army, who state that the report is presented fairly. Here's a web page where the Army analysis can be seen. The results of my investigation are enlightening. I find that the American Red Cross provided approximately $2.7 billion in what I deem to be legitimate services, compared to about $3 billion in revenue. This means that about 90 cents of every dollar donated was spent on legitimate services. This is a superb result, and far better than the false 8 cents per dollar listed in the Internet table. In fact, it is even better than some of the so-called good charities. By far, the largest portion of the legitimate services went to biomedical services, $1.9 billion. But frankly, when I need a blood transfusion, I would like to trust the blood supplier. Other services provided by the American Red Cross were for the armed services, disaster relief, domestic and international, and other health and safety services. Rounding out my analysis, I find that about 4 cents per dollar is spent on administrative expenses, and about 6 cents per dollar is spent on fundraising. Clearly, we all need to become involved in challenging these disgraceful lies, while being careful not to donate to a charity scam. Unfortunately, it is true that there are many charity scams perpetuated on the internet and elsewhere. You definitely need to be careful before donating, but it is unconscionable to use that fact as a way to bludgeon legitimate charities. A couple of trustworthy websites that you can use to check out a charity are Snopes, which we've seen earlier, and here, Consumer Reports, which has an excellent website article on how to check out a charity. Both references have additional websites where you can find specific information about a charity. Numerous attempts have been made over the last decade to combat these charity lies. Sadly, most have failed to stamp out this scourge. I am hoping that creating this video exposing these lies will be more successful. But in order to eradicate these lies, I will need your help. There are two important things that you can do to help eradicate these lies. The first is to publicly challenge the lies whenever they rear their ugly head. It is important that the challenge be made publicly, not privately, because you need to be sure everyone who has been exposed to the lies hears the truth. In particular, if you see the lie on Facebook, add a comment challenging the lies. Include a link to this video or to some other reference in your comment. If you received an email spreading these lies, hit Reply All. Include a link to this video or some other reference in your reply. If someone verbally spreads these lies publicly, challenge them with the truth. I am not familiar with the details of other social media, but I assume there must be a way to publicly respond to the spreading of these lies there too. Please do so. The second important thing you can do to help is to be proactive. If you're on Facebook or some other social media, periodically publicly share a link to this video with your friends and ask them to share it publicly. Send an email containing a link to this video to all your friends and ask them to forward it to as many people as possible after removing any intermediate addresses in the forwarded mail. Send this information to your local news media. The purveyors of these charity lies have a number of strategies at their disposal for combating the truth. A few of the more common techniques are character assassination. I think this says more about the assassin's character than mine. I find it best to ignore this kind of attack. The truth speaks for itself. Another technique is to change the subject. Rather than dispute the data's truth, those that want to disseminate these lies try to change the subject. This technique can even be seen in the original table, where the executive compensations include the false claim of providing a Rolls-Royce. Visit Snopes for details to verify this and other false claims. I ignore these attempts too, as otherwise this becomes a never-ending process which detracts from the main point, as new lies are constantly being invented to discredit the sucker charities. Yet another technique is to ignore the truth. In some ways, this is the most insidious response of all, because there seems to be a cadre of individuals dedicated to spreading these charity lies. These people just keep on sending out emails containing these lies, or post them on social media like Facebook. Unfortunately, they tend to deceive many unsuspecting individuals into doing their dirty work, so periodically the lies keep resurfacing. Finally, the technique of repackaging the charity lies is used. What I've shown is only one form of the lie's presentation. Changing the format of the presentation makes it seem as if the data is new or fresh and valid, but inspection of the so-called new data reveals it is exactly the same old lies. Here, for example, is another presentation of the charity lies. At first glance, it isn't apparent that the same old lies are being presented, but a closer examination reveals that it is actually the same old discredited data. As you may have surmised, I'm a bit upset by these charity lies, and because of my near-death experience, I find them personally offensive. I hope you take the time and effort to join me in fighting for the truth.